Welcome back. Today, we are jumping straight into a wild explainer that feels like a corporate thriller, but it's 100% real. We're dissecting the anatomy of a corporate cover-up, specifically a case known as the contractor with two badges. Now, if you've ever worked in an office where things just felt, I don't know, a little bit off, you're going to want to pay close attention to this one. Because what we're looking at is how a mind-numbingly boring administrative error completely masked a massive security loophole. We're talking about access control, outsourced influence, and the completely hidden routes that outsiders use to literally touch internal truth. And strategy lead Maya Carter absolutely hits the nail on the head with this perspective. She shatters what we usually expect. When we think of corporate espionage, we picture like dramatic late-night hacks or explosive whistleblowers, right? But real workplace threats, they do not start with explosions. They start quietly. They begin with some random object nobody really wants to explain. Just a simple contractor profile sitting on a desk before the office has even fully woken up. It's the sheer boredom of the document that makes it so incredibly dangerous. Because think about it, boring is exactly where people hide the really expensive, damaging stuff. So let's look at what happened when the company's polished official explanation slammed right into the raw data sitting on the audit team's desk. The facilities department pushed this official narrative. They basically brushed it off, saying, oh, it's just a harmless duplicate record from a routine security migration. Typical corporate speak, right? Just trying to smooth things over. But the raw data? It told a wildly different story. This was absolutely no glitch. What we actually had was one single contractor profile holding two distinct active badges that were tied to completely different departments. One badge was sitting pretty in the official visitor log, and the other, well, it just didn't officially exist. And this idea right here, this is the heartbeat of the whole situation. Instead of getting caught up in all the noisy corporate theater, executives using soft, fluffy words like alignment and healing to make the problem go away, the team took a totally different route. They just patiently followed the silent, undeniable sequence of records. It's so true that when a company wants to just bury the past and move on, those soft words magically appear right when the actual record is about to get softened up too. But if you have a record-first culture, it demands that you actually read the page underneath the cover page. Enter Sophia. She's a new operations coordinator, and crucially, she's protected by the company's newly instituted memory charter. Because she's new, she hasn't absorbed all the toxic office politics yet. She literally doesn't know which questions are supposed to be inconvenient. So she just looks at the metadata and the fine print and asks the basics. Who changed it? When did it change? And who approved the change? These are the exact foundational questions that the seasoned veterans usually just skip right over, so they don't step on anyone's toes. But by just reading what the experienced folks dismissed as standard procedure, Sophia completely forces the room to face reality. Knowing the pushback was coming, Maya meticulously builds what she calls a proof map, because chasing people down, that just leads to denials and messy emotional arguments. Instead, she relies entirely on the systems. You identify the object, trace it to an owner, check the timestamp, and finally, find the beneficiary. Systems do not lie. Sometimes they hesitate, but they don't lie. By putting the right records in sequential order, Maya built this brilliantly clean path from action straight to owner. It's a forensic progression that starts doing the talking long before anyone is forced into a confession. It just totally replaces emotion with undeniable process. This whole investigation really took a two-pronged approach. On one side, you have Nina, the executive assistant, bringing in the background work. We're talking about all those invisible administrative tasks, booked rooms, routed documents, draft prints, the stuff that basically sees everything. Then on the other side, you have Jordan, the IT audit specialist, bringing the system reality. He wasn't using any kind of flashy movie hacker tools. He was just projecting the raw sequence of raw logs, access fields, and device records. When you combine Nina's background paper trail with Jordan's hard system logs, boom, they built a sequence of events that you literally cannot talk your way out of. And here is where things get crazy. When Jordan overlaid his system logs with Nina's background work, the ultimate clue dropped. This was absolutely 100% not a migration error. That second undocumented badge, it was being used for after-hours document access in the highly sensitive memory archive. Just let that sink in for a second. A contracted records consultant was sneaking around after dark, using a ghost badge to secretly rewrite and alter institutional truth right where the internal employees couldn't even see it. So that boring administrative error? Yeah, it was actually a backdoor key. So with that bombshell, the dynamic in the room just completely shifts. Aisha, an analyst looking at this with totally fresh eyes, drops this incredibly heavy question. Who benefits if this stays classified as a harmless error? You know how executives love to steer conversations away from facts and back into feelings, hiding in that vague fog of corporate excuses? Well, Aisha's question just completely shrinks the room. It corners everyone, forcing them to realize that protecting this so-called harmless error actually meant they were actively protecting the specific people tied to that contractor.
It's fascinating how corporate pressure rarely introduces itself directly, isn't it? It usually shows up disguised as soft career advice or, a concern for stability. Executives like Adrian Vail are masters at using optics to hide the truth. They soften the verbs, they rename bad choices, and they ask everyone to consider the optics of the situation. It sounds so gentle and reasonable right up until you realize it's a direct attempt to erase evidence. Acknowledging the truth isn't turning things into a crisis. It's literally just reading what is already there on the page. The truth wasn't the damage here. Hiding it was.
As this review turns into a full-on theater production of polished executives playing their careful roles, Maya just counters with absolute stillness. It's brilliant. The stronger the record becomes, the quieter she gets. She doesn't need to raise her voice because she has order on her side. One page shuts down one excuse, a timestamp shuts down another. By just calmly placing undeniable proof right next to their official excuses, the lie just collapses under its own weight. She completely strips away the need for personal trust or messy office politics, and she anchors the room strictly to the undeniable data they created themselves. At this point, the company is staring down a huge choice. Do we fix this quietly to save face, or do we actually repair the broken system? Elise, an independent board member, refused to accept a quiet, private fix that would just leave future employees exposed. Instead, she institutes 3 highly actionable rules. From now on, vendor access must be time-limited, it absolutely must be owner-approved, and it has to be published in a weekly trust report. Because real systemic repair has to outlive the meeting where the problem was discovered. It has to publicly teach a lesson and protect folks who might never even know this incident happened in the first place. Maya noted such a crucial lesson during all this. She said, do not quietly fix what can publicly teach. By writing the lesson directly into the workflow and the process itself, they made sure the system leaves footprints from now on. They didn't just solve a mystery about 2 badges, they entirely changed the battlefield. The next time someone tries to pull off a corporate lie or take a shady shortcut, it's going to be nearly impossible to hide because this new system is literally designed to catch them in the act. I want to leave you with a pretty provocative final thought for this explainer. Look around and consider the true weight of everyday objects in your own workplace. A visitor badge is not just a piece of plastic. It's access. It's real authority. It is literally permission to rewrite what insiders cannot touch. So think about your own office right now. Who holds the plastic that gives them that permission, all while everyone else is just looking the other way? Thank you so much for joining me today. I highly recommend taking a much closer look at the boring records in your own systems. You never know what you'll find.